and bringing our remaining fleets on our central system, and taking a stride in asset reliability. So who are we? At Amtrak, since last 50 years, we are on a mission to connect people and communities across America, to drive them into that new direction and bringing the world-class passenger railroad into America, right? So looking ahead optimistically in light of IIJ, we are we are more than committed to bring that new and improved rail routes and bringing millions of new customers to our Amtrak and passenger railroad, add new communities and connect them together. And we are working on the infrastructure. We are renovating our stations. We are introducing new fleets. And all that is doing the setting of the foundation for next 50 years or more to come, so that the generations to follow can thrive in a world with a better world-class passenger railroad, greener communities, and less traffic and happier people. Fun fact, traveling by Amtrak emits the 83% less carbon greenhouse gases as opposed to driving, and 73% less than flying. So for your next trip, think Amtrak. So with all that expansion and existing assets, very high value assets, we need a robust enterprise asset management solution so that we can manage our right-of-way equipment, our signals and communication, our passenger and our fleets, our buildings, our stations, our A&T, and so that keeping our on-time performance intact, meeting the guideline and the principles of PTC, positive train control, having our stations ADA compliance, clean and managed. So we looked at why it's so critical for us to really focus on enterprise asset management system. Now let's drill down a little bit how we are thinking about it and how we are creating what's our current system and how we are evolving towards our enterprise asset management system. So we are on this journey for quite some time now. We have done a couple of releases so far. And as you can see, we achieved some of it. We are working towards achieving some of this. And when we think about creating the enterprise asset management at Amtrak, our philosophy is no system does it all, right? It's all about harnessing the collective power of the related product families, thinking wide and holistic, and then creating that connected ecosystem so that you can truly harness the value, right? So we have done various releases so far. We have implementing mainline rail on Maximo 7.6.1, and we are hosting at IBM CDS Cloud Delivery Services. And we have integrated with our S systems so that the right source data can reside at the rightful place. But still you can bring it all together and complete your picture, right? So we have done a big mega release where we have rolled out 30+ integrations last week. We are still in the hangover of that release. And we have done with the reservation system, our Alstom, which is our OEM vendor with their systems, with our SAP, Amtrak SAP system. And there is another one coming up next with the timekeeping and our delay reporting systems, our wayside integrations that all are on the horizon right now. So we have implemented mainline rail, as I talked in my earlier slide. It works when it's hosted on top of Maximo 7.6. And then we are using IBM CDS services to host it. We have bought this because it is bundled with the business processes and workflows, and it provides some unique features which fulfill the need of our railroad users. It works very seamlessly with our current S systems across Amtrak. So when we talk about all of that journey and some of our technology roadmap and everything and how we are implementing all of that, and we have been through a couple of releases so far to an EEM program at Amtrak, is business has high expectations from us, right? So far, these are to making the digital transformation a reality at Amtrak. These have been some of our guiding principles, how we are abiding our implementation right now. So one of the key ones that I would pick first is collaboration, right? It's been very complex project so far. We are working in great collaboration with our business partners, our implementation partners, our cross-functional teams, and truly delivering the IT product and services that fulfill the need of customers, not just checking the box, right? So to me, that's the foundational in all of these key philosophies here. We are doing holistic, as I talked about, the thinking wide and holistic. We talked about that, a connected ecosystem. Strategic, because we have built an operational technology map, and we are trying to deliver the right features and products in the right order. And I will be painting a very rosy picture if I claim that we figured it out all and we have an impeccable timeline to deliver the right feature at the right time. But our technology roadmap is certainly acting as a foundation stone for us, right? And to maximize our value. Some of the key one, as you all can see, Agile, we are doing it, of course, in Agile framework to maintain that great collaboration with our business partners and delivering that, being nimble and adaptable as the business needs change, which happens, right, very often. So we are using this, and we expect our integration vendors, our implementation partners to be agile with us on that one too. It's a combination of all the Jira, Confluence, AWS framework for the code merging and movement. We are using that DevOps framework. And of course, we are hosting our solution on cloud at IBM CDS environment and making use of that for the scalability and making it, try to have all those updates as seamless as possible. We are putting, with this release, our mechanical department, she will talk a little bit more about that implementation journey. We'll be launching our Maximo mobile first time to those users. It's very super exciting for us. So they will be, we are using one product which is BMP based, it's our Pedestrian Maximo mobile product. And we'll talk about some of the, of course, all of these things is to bring making the decisions data driven, right? So these are some of our core philosophies that we are abiding by right now for our implementation. With that, let me hand over to Malini to talk a little bit more about the location.
Thank you, Renu. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Malini Das. So I'm here to talk about this is one of the main things. We had hundreds of meetings to even finalize the location levels, because where we had this is we are having 3 departments that is implementing Maximo. Out of that, we went live with the real estate and the facilities last year. And this year, we just, as Renu mentioned, for the mechanical department, we just went live last week. And the other department is engineering, who is coming on board with their on the phase 2 of this system. So,
yeah, down.
Okay. Yeah. So the main goal of this location hierarchy is we want a single Maximo instance for all these 3 departments, the SFPA, the mechanical, and the engineering department. So they will have a transparency, or operational transparency. And going through this is like a pictorial view of how we came up to this decision. This is with our vendor Rcm and the proposed solution. So we had 2 kind of location types, if you may. One is for levels. We had like level 1 through level 7, and where you see the line code. Amtrak as a railroad, when we are in, for example, in Northeast Corridor, we have the line codes like AP line code is for the Philadelphia line, AN for the New York line, and there are other line codes. So whenever you're typically when you are having an asset, you refer to that line code and the proximity of those, either the properties or it is either the station stop, the yard for mechanical, the interlocking, or the communication signals, which in reference to this line code. So for these are basically for a physical location hierarchy where the type is basically in relevance to this line code. But if they do not fall under this, over there we have the functional position. For example, if you have a HVAC for your facilities department, it may not fall under this level criteria. So those locations are configured as FPOS. So this is, I'm just going to go through all the three different, what was the thought process, how did we implement? So this is SFPA, station facilities, properties, and accessibility. That's a tongue twister. But in the SFPA, if you see the AP line code is your base. It's like your level 1, and we are building on it. Your level 2 will be your station or stop area, and then your level 3 will be this platform and parking lot. So in that way, whenever somebody wants to look at a location, first of all, this real estate was the very first department to implement this, EAM. So at that time, they had, from their previous system, they had only one station code. If you take Philadelphia, 30th Street Station, there is one station code. With the new EAM implementation, how it separated was you would have a station or stop area as the 30th Street, and the station itself will be one level, platform, parking, and also the right of way. So you can actually relate it to all the levels with this kind of an architecture or this kind of a solution. So this is how we had this is our current implementation for the SFPA. The next one here for mechanical department. So this was our first time implementing EAM solution for the mechanical department. So we had to kind of fit them or marry them into this, how we are going to make all these groups work together. So here again, for example, I'll take this yard. It's a mechanical yard. I'll refer to the IVCT. IVCT is in Washington, DC. So again, when we are having this location laid out, that yard will be in reference to a line. Even IVCT in Washington, DC is on the AP line. So your level 1 will be your AP line. Then your yard will be your level 2. And the tracks on the yard, there are going to be trains they will service. So there are tracks there too. So this is those are level 3. And there may be floors in your yard location. Those will be the same level as the tracks. So that's how we have achieved location hierarchy for the physical locations for the yard for the mechanical department. And here is the proposed hierarchy for the infrastructure assets for our engineering department. You will take the AP line. It's my favorite, now you know. So it's the AP line, and then you will have tracks. So your AP line again will be your level 1, and your tracks or your buildings and bridges or your signals or your electric transmission line, those will be your level 2. So in that way, we kind of now have an approach how the levels will be implemented and shared across all the 3 different operating business units. Now I pass on to Shri, who will take us through the EAM transformation journey for the mechanical department. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Good afternoon, all. I'm Shri Dhulipalla. So I want to take us through the digital transformation of the fleet in Amtrak. So we were using Spear, which is an infra product. We implemented it in 2002. We have all kinds of fleets. All the mechanical department and transportation department will be using all the work that you can think of that can work on a fleet is happening in Spear, which is campaigns, correctives, daily inspection, incidents, maintenance, everything. As complete modernization is happening, we also thought we want to think towards what is our possibilities, where do we want to land with our future work management initiative. for the fleet. So we started our journey with the EAM, and this is where we were planning to go. Okay, so we talked about fleet modernization. Amtrak is going through a lot of improvisation so that we can give the best class customer experience and all the good things to our customers. So this is a fleet-centric model that we are implementing for our new SLR, which is going to be the fastest train in the Northeast Corridor. So the train set that we are showing there is a married pair, and it consists of all the different types of rail units. The types of rail units you're seeing here are the power car, cafe car, all of those. So we are doing the structuring in a way so that all the locations can hold the sub-assemblies and to the lowest replaceable asset, where we can track the compliance and we can figure out what's going on with that asset and measurements and condition monitoring points. So you understood so far. So data integrity is a key factor here. What locations can hold what assets is what we are managing in the data integrity, so that we can get on to the reliability based and find out what's going on with those assets. Okay, so along with that, we are going with the infused intelligence business technology. So kind of we are capturing all the assets data as a parent so that we can build a structure and hierarchy. And all that data asset maintenance is being shared with our vendors. We call that as maintained structure. And we are building from the life cycle of the whole asset throughout its journey. So this gives us the visibility for our sustainability of how better we can do with our assets. Let's go on to the next slide. What is our future? So the new SLR that we talked about, it is a married pair, but in future, we want to bring on all the other fleets. So other fleets that we are talking about, which is coming as the ALC 42 is our next horizon coming up. That is Amtrak long distance. It is not a married pair. So we are trying to figure out and fit in all of that into that. So concept train is a logical term, which we call it as a train. The operational team, once it gets mechanic team certifies this are good to be used. Operational team comes up with the concept, and that is the commercial selling point of the tickets. The unit composition by the position is called unit composition, and timetables are nothing but our schedules. So all of this, we are trying to bring it on for the future horizon of ALC 42s and much more to come. So we are also bringing on the wayside systems data, and we are building all this data fragmentation so that we can hold our wayside data to see what exactly these assets are doing and how these are being coming up with our predictive analysis. With this, I will pass it on to Malini for the future road ahead of engineering. Thank you, Shri.
So this is as I mentioned earlier, engineering is on their is the next online for the implementation. We are in the phase 2 of our EAM implementation. So engineering already has best practices, and they have been doing various levels of fault repair, inspect and service, and scheduled maintenance. So with EAM being implemented, what we are looking on board for EAM to bring in is to have more information to monitor the condition of the assets, and so we can react proactively on the assets monitoring. The other one is based having the EAM implementation to get better forecasting, and also a view onto the asset health, how the assets are doing with more data that we would be having with the EAM implementation. The other part of this, just not only on the Maximo implementation, but for the asset intelligence part, we have the data analytics team that's working on collecting the track data values from the geometry car information, so we could have a better predictive analytic modeling for the engineering systems. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Reem.
Thank you, Malini. So too much information. We try to, too much to say and share, and we try to put it all together. I mean, I'm not going to go very deep into this slide. To what Shri and Malini has said, and majority of all of you in the room, right, we all know how crucial it is to have the right data to asset reliability. So we can keep building our fancy predictive models all day long. Really, if your data quality that's feeding to that predictive model is not right, it's worthless. And that's, I think, the constant struggle organizations has accepted. I hope they accept it. Unless until we accept that, we can't move beyond it. So, and it's a multifaceted problem that every organization are taking their own, way to solve it. We are trying to bring all the wayside data to our enterprise asset EAM solution, and we are trying to build, taking it to EDW also, and we are trying to build this connected ecosystem. And we are also improving on the mobile front, where you can grab the information, first-hand information, where users has to enter that. So that's one of the key aspects we are trying to build and harness that data, and ultimately building it up to our enterprise EDW solution, where you can start doing the predictive models. We have started some of the dashboard work on that already, but that's our goal. That's where we truly want to be like sustainable, and that's where we want to have a good handle on, and that's when we can say, yes, we have achieved our EAM vision. So that's all we had for today for you. Thank you. Yeah, I think you can share on the Maximo. I don't know if we have still time to remain. We have to give. Okay, sure. There is any information.
So are you getting IoT data, visual and spatial data?
Yes, we are working on that framework right now.
Okay. So it's not something that you're doing already?
So twofold on that one. Right now, we have in our own WMS also, we are getting it from various, our wayside equipment, we are getting it, but it's not automatic at this point of time. Far as we talked about, one of our integrations that we have already done from that all-step OEM vendor, that's one of the key automatic triggering points where they are getting directly, and we are triggering the fault as soon as they are getting the fault. So that's how we have built that particular integration. And the wayside for all the other detectors is on the Rcm
Same thing with engineering versus inspection and IoT. Being looked into, that's next on their roadmap of things.
How long do you think where you are?
Yeah, 2.5 years so far, plus more with some groundwork that kind of beyond that.
So for mechanical, this was the first time even coming into Maximo. So the data, everything has to be brought over and for the mechanical department. For agency, they had some part already in Maximo, but they had a lot more to do for the robust location, hierarchy and all. So that took us almost a year to post them. And for engineering, we are just picking up the projects, hopefully within 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we'll just keep us on track. We just got one quick announcement, then we'll get into the next presentation.
So we will leave around 6 p.m. for call call. It's going to be Maximo, of course. So buses will leave at 6 p.m. and if everybody can just take a quick break after the event and go downstairs in the lobby and then move on out.
Especially during my remote, any questions, we can just email me right there. I think I could share number, so just call me. Just meet us and we'll all go together.
Okay. Next up, we have Troy Peck from Electric. Troy Peck from Electric. Topic you can see organizational change and successful asset management program.
So good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you here. How's everybody doing? Excited to be here, right? It's what is it, day Monday?
Yeah.
So if we're here Friday afternoon at about 12, we might have a little bit different scenario ready to go home and get back to our families. But anyway, my name is Troy Heck. I work for an organization called Electro Learning. So we specialize in learning and training in Maximo. I'm going to do like a little TED talk here, about 10 minutes. So just a few high points as it relates to organizational change management and building a successful asset management program. Just a quick snapshot of the organization. We were established in 1997 in Scotland. So as you know, I don't have a Scottish accent, so I'm sort of phase 2 of the plan of Electra. But we started off 25 years ago. My boss came to Canada roughly 10 years ago, and now we're slowly moving into the US and our world domination of maximal training. Planes, trains, automobiles, buses, and boats is next. There we go. We've got offices in Calgary, Toronto, Houston, and Aberdeen, and we focus on maximal training. This is what we do. And we found that through our times out there that organizational change management is something that often rears its head to say, oh, what about this? What about that? And the old saying is, my job would be so much easier if there was no people involved. And I think that's where we come to play, is really the people side of change. So I've got 3 points, just 3 simple things that I'd like to talk to you about today. And number 1 is really defining the change. What's coming? Where are we going? What about our people? What are we doing with them? Then we focus on the people and say, how do we engage them? How do we involve them? How do we get them through this somewhat painful process? And then how do we make the pivot? How do we make that change real with as little downtime and as little morale drop and all of those pieces possible? So change. What is change? Who likes change? Put up your hand. I don't mean socks and underwear, folks. I mean change, right? Like that fundamental core change of doing something strange and different. So people learning new processes, using new technology to achieve business goals. This is what Maximo does. This is what an EAM does. It allows us to get to our ROI, the things that we want to do for the business, to grow the business, to help make things better. But oftentimes we neglect those people. So why do a lot of implementations fail or have multiple challenges? It's not because of technology. It's not because of the PM. It's because we don't involve and engage our people enough to allow them to make the change, to get it into their heads to say, yes, I can do this. I want to do this. Let's move forward. So on the next slide here, we sort of see the opportunity of current state, transitional state, and future state. And sometimes we rush through this and we want to get to the milestone, we want to get to the end, we want to hit implementation, and let's go, we're now live. But there's some thought around here that says, well, we're in the current stage, and we know we're going into this transition stage. And we know we can do this well, we're just going to have a slight dip in organizational productivity and morale. Or if we do this poorly, or if we don't do any at all, what happens? We hit that deep trough, and we spend a lot of time in trying to get people literally on the bus, right? To get to that adoption phase, to get them to use the system. So what we want to do is we want to get through OCM, we want to get the green line, or follow the green line as closely as we can. Now, if we look at this slightly differently, we see the technical side. How many times do we see Maximo implemented through IT? Right? They're driving the bus, right on. IT guys, what are we doing? We're worried about data. We're worried about integrations. We're worried about all this stuff to get the machine, quote unquote, the software working. We've got designers, developers, and all of these people pushing it forward. I argue, or my belief is, we often forget the bottom rung. How do we get people to embrace this, adopt it, use it, to get to that successful future state quicker and better, saving more money and being better for our organization? So that's the drive, and that's where we try to assist our clients as we go through it. So for me, where does it start? And luckily enough, in a past instance, I worked a lot with entrepreneurs and startups, and my first question to them was, what is success? What's success for you? What's success for your business? Let's define that. Let's get as deep as we can into that and figure out what it is. What's your objective? Why are we implementing Maximo? What's the purpose of this? Who's involved? What's the scope? How big or how small is it? We talked about the engineering groups and all the different groups, like who's getting this? Who isn't? And the kicker, right? The idea of change is change should be done with you, not to you. And a lot of times with big changes, you're just along for the ride. You don't get a choice. You have no, how do you say, mastery of your own fate. Huge point. KPIs. What are the key performance indicators and desired outputs of this implementation for the business? What do you want? Because if we get a very clear picture of what this is, we can communicate it to our people that they understand it, and if they understand it, they can adopt it and move forward with it. So communicating the vision. People, right? Every individual in the room is unique. Thankfully, there are no two of us. I know my wife couldn't deal with that anyway. Right, two of me. Each person is unique. We see the world slightly differently. It's a combination of our experiences, where we've been, what we've done. So we try to say, well, who are these people? Where are they going? But in reality, we're all human. So we have very similar responses to change. Right? There's resistance, there's avoidance, there's anger, there's frustration, and there's adoption, and there's happiness and excitement. But these are the general things that we see when it comes to change. There's predictable patterns, and everybody goes through these patterns at slightly different paces. I once had a maintenance supervisor one time. He came in and he's like, "You're taking my maintenance logbook away from me?" And I said, yes, I am. But this is why, right? And we had to go through the whole process to get him to the point where he knew, liked, and loved Maximo. A little bit more on the people side of change. What's in it for me? Human nature. What's in it for me? Why are we doing this? So some people will say, if I ignore this, will this thing go away? I'm about 284 days away from retirement. I'm going to avoid this as long as I can, so I can just sit out the door. Are my responsibilities going to change? What do you mean I got to log in? This isn't my job description, right? What's this thing that you're bringing to my desk? Well, I have to upgrade my skills. Do I need to take training? I don't really like training. What does that look like? What am I going to have to do different? So this is where it gets into people's heads. Who am I reporting to? And again, finally, what's in it for me? I think within organizations, if you're being, or if you're in the process of change, the beginning of change, this is all something that just raises its head every time we do either a little bit of change or severe change. Now, just a couple of key points, and then we're going to turn things back over here. But the idea is, if you look at the top line, very similar to any style of PM, project management, right? You go in, you say, hey, project initiation. Everybody's excited. Hey, we've got this great project. We're going to do this. Yeah, rah, rah, rah. You start doing analysis. Start looking at plan and design. We do development. We do implementation. We do solidify and sustain. These are all those pieces. But on the bottom end, are we doing the same thing with our people, right? Are we doing the same thing with them? Are we initiating the conversation? Are we planning in and around our people and what we're going to do with them and how we're going to do it? Are we executing and are we following up? And we could use the pro-sci analogy. Are we using ADCARD, awareness, design, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement? Are we using that whole process to get them through it? So my final point here today is if you are engaging or starting that change management process, there's sort of 5 key components that are going to be considered. Number 1, do you have a change sponsor? Do you have a leader that's going to lead the charge? They're going to drive the bus. They're going to be that individual that moves it forward. They're going to be active and engaged. Secondarily, are we engaging our stakeholders? Do we talk to our operators, our train drivers, our bus drivers, and everybody else in between? Do we engage those people? From the vision, do we communicate? Do we tell them what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it? These are the driving forces to stay away from here. The resistance piece, right? You don't want people resisting, sabotaging, and all those other pieces that can come with change. And then finally, the training. Do we have role-specific training that tells people about what's in it for me, the big picture, the processes, and the technology all mixed together to help us stay away from that deep trough in that curve? So really, those are the 3 things that I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully you've gained a little bit. We'll be around all week if anybody wants to talk change management, a little bit of a nerd that way. So happy to sit and discuss further, but just like to say thank you for your time, folks. And I hope you enjoy your time here this weekend.
Sure, yeah. We've got enough time for just one question if somebody wants to. Okay, thanks.
Going once, going twice, so
Appreciate it.
thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Next up, I think we have Doug from WMATA. Doug?
I can use that. And while she's queuing this up, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Doug Stevenson. I am not from WMATA, from WSP, so apologies if you're expecting WMATA. It's okay, but I am going to talk about them. So is there anybody here from WMATA? I hope not. Okay, good. So that's me. You guys don't need to hear a lot about it. The only thing that kind of jumps out on here that makes me a little sad is I see 32 years of experience and it makes me feel really old. But then I look around this room and I look young now again, so thank you. WMATA, everybody knows what WMATA is, right? If you guys want to know what kind of assets they have, you can Google it. It's pretty available on the web. So what we're going to talk about today is a project we did with WMATA. They had challenges with their operating expenses, and they hired us to help them to address those, quite simply. So we're going to talk about that context of what the challenge was, and then how we responded, and then examples of what we did. But first, the one thing, if anything, you all take away from this presentation is this slide. Is there anybody here that's actually involved in developing maintenance plans for their assets? Yes, good. The one thing that I want to point out here, 68% of our failures are self-induced, okay? That means when we maintain things, we're not necessarily making things better, okay? This is a really hard thing for a lot of maintenance planners to get in their heads, but I hope we all walk away with it. I hope we all believe it. We've done it at WMATA. We've made survivability charts for every single one of their assets, and they all look like this curve right here. What this is showing us is most failures happen either right after you install that asset or right after you maintain it. The further you get away from it, less failures, okay? Anybody that's worked on their own cars, I think, can kind of understand that, right? And believe it. So today's challenges for WMATA, they were having issues before COVID. That's been accelerated with reduced ridership, reduced fares. So they've got a big operating expense issue, right? Enough said on that slide. So normally the way they respond to it is that orange wedge, which is operations, so trains running on time, buses, the different routes and how many hours of services they provide. Equity is a very big deal today, right? And reducing routes, reducing hours is just not an option. So they got to go to their next biggest wedge, which is maintenance, in the light blue wedge there. So that's why they started this project, really. So in a perfect world, we're doing all kinds of things from a maintenance perspective. We're leveraging an Internet of Things. We're doing predictive maintenance. We're using the right maintenance at the right place on the maintenance continuum, reliability centered, predictive maintenance, etc. But most of our organizations, right, we're not there yet. It's not that easy to achieve it. So what's our reality? Everybody has day jobs, right? That is running the railroad, right? They haven't had time to go in and implement these long lead time strategies. RCM is not an overnight thing. Predictive maintenance is not an overnight thing. They're absolutely of value to pursue, but WMATA needed to save money immediately, okay? So we had to look at their existing maintenance plans. So, hey, we don't live in a perfect world, but there's still things we can do. We have a process within WSP. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's just basically collect data, analyze data, find out what we can do it, right? So first step, data collection. Again, not going to spend a lot of time here other than to say perfect data is not required, okay? We can tell a lot just by reading the tea leaves, and talk about a couple of examples of the data that we looked at that wasn't perfect, but gave us some good threads to pull, right? Which ended up with some results. So perfect data, not required. So our thing was we had to get results quickly, right? And so we had to prioritize what we were going to work on. So we did 2 levels of Pareto analyses. The first was on all asset classes, so rail car, bus, plant, track, etc. What we found out from that was bus, plant, rail car were way more expensive than anything else, right? So it didn't really make a lot of sense to spend time in low voltage power, right? We could optimize that by 50% and still nothing, right? Insights that you can get from just doing this right up front, right? So the first thing is really, where am I spending the most money, right? That's where my first priority should be. Second is looking at your PM to CM ratio. How much you're spending on PMs versus CMs. So red is PM, black is CM. I think everybody kind of uses that same litmus test thumb rule where it's like 80-20 split between the two. It really depends on how you're accounting what is CM as to where that really falls, right? There's a lot of variety in there. But ultimately, if you've got a high PM to CM ratio, you could be over maintaining your asset. You could be doing it more often than you need to. And you could take advantage of that to reduce how often you're doing it and save some money and some failures, right? Because every time we touch it, it's just like going under the knife. We're introducing failures. Low PM to CM ratio, right? Like these assets here. This is, by the way, real data. This is their plant assets. The ones that are red, basically, there's no PMs for it, and yet there's a lot of failures, right? So there's opportunity there. In this case, we actually focused on the tunnel ventilation fans. So once you've identified which assets you want to attack, you want to look at what ways can I optimize that maintenance for it, right? And we've got a few arrows in our quiver. Frequency optimization, this is, hey, I'm doing this monthly. Does my asset really wear based on the movements of the sun and the stars, right? Probably not, right? So maybe I can do a different frequency. Maintenance instruction optimization. So I've got a detailed plan, hopefully, of the maintenance that I'm going to do. I should be looking at it and making sure that it all makes sense, that it's all adding value. Remove those items that don't. Two processes that we use. So from a bottom up perspective, we use Rcm. And then from a top down, if I've already got an existing maintenance plan, we use what we call in-service Rcm, which is basically evaluating it from a step-by-step basis as opposed to looking at the failures, potential failures. Performance optimization, these people are taking 8 hours to do this. Can I get them down to 5, right? Asset lifecycle optimization is simply, hey, this asset has so many failures, it's an opportunity for either overhaul, design change, retire, replace. And then finally, maintenance maturity optimization. I think everybody's seen that continuum of run to failure all the way to predictive, right? Can I move it on that spectrum? I think we've got an example of most of these. So maintenance maturity optimization. So at WMATA, for their rail cars, at the time they were maintaining them on a monthly basis. I would submit their rail cars don't wear based on, the calendar. I believe they wear based on their actual usage, the mileage. So we did a lot of evaluation to see, hey, can we save by moving to a mileage-based PM program? Most people are already there, I think. Yes, probably there, right? They are not. And at the time, they did not have a way to track the mileage of the rail cars, right? So we had to implement that as part of this. But the thing to notice here is, I've got an average mileage per month, which is about 6,000 miles. I've got a whole population, half the population is below that, right? So I'm arguably over maintaining that population. That population above it actually had less failures, right? So let's move to the 75th percentile, right? And move to a mileage-based maintenance program. Frequency optimization. So we evaluated 2 separate asset classes. One of them was the tunnel ventilation fans and the other were escalators. We looked at their historical failure trends. We looked at their survivability curves. We saw that they trailed off the further you got away from actually performing maintenance. And we started to discover some interesting things, particularly with tunnel ventilation fans. And if we went back far enough in their history, they used to do that maintenance once every 3 months, right? So looking at the data, seeing they're doing this frequently, looking and seeing that the survivability curve showed us, hey, we might be better off if we let this go further, allowed us to pull that thread and move them back to a 45-day cycle and now to a 90-day cycle, right? Less failures, actually, more reliable, while saving money, right? Saving labor hours. So performance and maintenance instruction optimization. So that top one there, it's not exactly a bell curve, right? But we evaluated their most frequent PM for buses, and we saw that the mean time was 9 hours. We saw that there was a wide distribution for how much time people were taking to do this. So first thought right there, there's opportunity to tighten this up, right? The more we looked at it, the first thing that jumped out at us was there is one task that is actually performing the PM. And that one always took 8 hours, right? So if you're suspicious, like me, right, you wonder, wow, either they are the best planning organization in the world to get this right on the dot, right, 8 hours every single time, or they're either under maintaining it and not finishing everything, or they're over maintaining it and finishing it early. We audited, they were taking on average 3.5 hours, okay? Found out that the rest of their time was not being used very effectively, so basically took that threshold, pulled it down to a 4-hour threshold, got them down to about a 3.5 hour performance time. Now they can do 2 a shift instead of 1, right? The bottom one was kind of a quasi RCM analysis. We took their line card for performing bus maintenance. We looked at every single step on it. This is not all of them. There's hundreds of them. And we evaluated every single step. And some of the things that we started to notice was, number one, this is occurrences of failures or repairs required, right, as part of that inspection. I've got a lot of zeros, right, and a lot of ones. Seems like that might not be a very effective task, right, showing me I need to do something, right? At the minimum, I should increase the frequency, right? We pushed heavily for all of these to be removed because they weren't safety related. The types of failures were not predictive. They weren't time-based failures, they were just random. So there's hefty savings by modifying that line card. So prioritizing optimizations. One thing that I just want to point out here, with them, we had a lot of things to look at, right? And then we had to rack and stack which ones to perform. We didn't have unlimited time. The biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest, but the one that I would point out, availability. That is a nice way that we put, how willing is this organization to work with us, right? So maybe Railcar, we're not people that were really open to change, right? Maybe we needed Troy, right? So that was a big weighted factor for us. We needed to make sure the ones that we did first were people that wanted to work with us, because if we couldn't get them to work, we're not going to get the guys that don't want to play along to work with us. So basically have a way to prioritize it. Last point here, implement, measure, and control. So we did this, I want to say it was about a year ago, we finished this project, right? And we implemented some measures and left it with the departments to manage, right? I think it's important that you have KPIs that track it. Unfortunately, I had one of my colleagues, we've left this project about a year ago. We're working on other things with WMATA right now. We pulled the KPI and they're starting to trend back towards 5 hours on that PM task. So you have to reach back out, right? Maybe get some change management going on, but measure and control, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have it. So high level results, right? So our performance optimization, this was the one with the bus PMs. We reduced their time for performing it by 50%. They do that PM more than anything else they do in bus, so it's big savings for them. Schedule optimization, so for tunnel ventilation fans, you guys saw in the Pareto chart, that was the most frequent, or what they spend the most on is those tunnel ventilation PMs. We reduced that maintenance by 33%. Maturity optimization, excuse me, that one was for escalators. Maturity optimization was for tunnel ventilation fans. For the tunnel ventilation fans, what we found out was the reason they were doing it monthly was because they had to prove these things ran. So we found out, okay, let's just connect to these things, make sure we know whether they've ran within the month or not. If they've ran, we don't need to do a PM, right? Let's just do a PM based on an exception. That allowed us to move back out to a 3-month cycle. That last one is changing the line card for the buses. We proposed to them, right? But maybe we didn't have enough change management to get them to adopt it. We identified a 15% savings there. We just went through an RCM process though with their rail cars, and we've got pretty significant savings that we're proposing for their truck maintenance. They do a lot of things in their trucks that arguably does not make them healthy, right? Maybe arguably even introducing some failures. So we'll see how that one shakes out, but RCM a big proponent for it. So that's all I had, quick and dirty. I could talk about this for days, right? If anybody's interested in learning about what we did there and what we're currently working with, but I am also highly interested in hearing about what you all are doing when it comes to improving your efficiency. So sorry in advance, I'll be bugging you all. Thank you. Questions? Sure.
Slide 3 and 4 with your optimization values. I didn't see anything in there evaluating technician skill level. Was that included in your optimization?
We did not include that.
Why? You can tell me later. Just think.
I will say lead time to get results, right? Like we were working on things that we had to have results in months, not
that it was ignored, it just wasn't.
Right. And we didn't want to deal, again, time was of the essence in going through things like that, engages the union. And we did interact with the union. Anytime you're doing something like this, by the way, engage the union early, okay? We were asking their technicians to do things differently, right? We were putting a threshold on how long they took doing a job. And that would not have flown if we had not talked to the union up front, so.
So for you chose tunnel ventilation on the escalators, right? As your, like, why did you choose, were they the only ones they looked at optimizing, or because of the high costing maintenance, you kind of narrowed down to?
So we chose to look at those because of the cost, right? They were high cost items. And then when we started to evaluate their maintenance, first thing we did was we did survivability curves, right? Looking at when their failures occurred, right? And that was the first indication that you might be over maintaining these, right? And so then, you know, of course, we got together with the engineers and the mechanics, and we started to dig into, when you're doing this, are you seeing, you know, first of all, do these components wear over time, right, that you're looking at? And if not, it doesn't matter when you look at them, right? Because I could look at it today and it could fail tomorrow if it's just a random thing. So why look at it, right? There was a lot of that. There was a lot of the things that do fail, don't fail on a 30-day cycle, right? Much longer. So if something fails once a year and I can visually inspect it and see that that's coming, I don't need to do it every month, right? So those two lended themselves to that kind of a strategy. That's right.
So I know nothing about train maintenance, but when you got in, started out with train maintenance, but then you went to buses. What made you decide to still stick with mileage-based PMs instead of hours? Because of idle time and stuff on a bus could substantially change your PM schedule. And I can see mileage on brakes and stuff like that, but idle time for oil changes and routine stuff.
I'm going to tell you a secret. They're back to time-based maintenance on their rail car, okay? But you are right. There is one system that is hours-based, and that's HVAC, right? HVAC is running anytime that rail car is engaged with power source, which is almost 100% of the time for a modern rail car. So anytime they're sitting in the yard, they're on, and that AC is running, right? And so that particular, the AC maintenance, we left as time-based. Everything else we moved for mileage-based. So we did look for, hey, are there things that are hours based.
I just wanted, I'm with Roger, Dave Ryder. I just wanted to tell you guys how the Modernization Work is here. And I want to welcome you on behalf of Survivability.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody. My claim to fame with Maximo is I was a business owner for Chuck Polish for quite a time. And 36,000 users in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my heart's with you.
Thank you so
I know what
much.
it's like.
Thank you.
Anyway, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Oh, great. Okay, so next up, we have Susie Heath with Kpmg. And she's going to be doing this remotely.
All right, Susie, you're on. You can just unmute yourself.
Great. I think I might have just unmuted. Did that happen?
Yes, we're good.
You can hear me. Great. And you can see the slide deck, right?
All right, Susie, I'm going to mute myself because we can have two mics, but we can hear you. You're good. And we can also see your screen.
Excellent. Okay, thanks so much. All right, well, I'm sorry I couldn't be in the room with everyone today. It sounds like a great discussion, and I've been able to catch a few of the presentations that have happened so far and hear some familiar voices present. So I'm looking forward to hopefully catching up with some people in person later on today in Austin. So I'm slotting in here, and really this is a pretty high level presentation, really sharing some observations and themes and views around what's happening across infrastructure generally, and looking to link that into some of our more asset specific conversations that we might traditionally have around asset information and data, and how they connect to these bigger themes that we're seeing currently around infrastructure investment, grants, and capital program management. So in the US, there's currently unprecedented levels of funding released through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was mentioned earlier today. And it's really prompting asset owners to look at their capital program needs and grant application strategies to prepare investment cases. But my whole premise for this presentation really is, are those assessments leveraging the data that's held in the asset management system, and how can they start to use that data as a resource in those conversations? So while I may have mentioned a couple of times already, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IJA, while that is a specific US program, I really think this topic is relevant on a much broader scale. We did some research here and have shown that this is not a US specific moment in time, that, you know, especially given infrastructure has long since been recognized as a lever for economic recovery and growth. It's not really a surprise following the COVID-19 pandemic that countries across the globe are funneling central government funds to national, regional, and local agencies for infrastructure spending. So this is happening across leading and emerging economies alike, as the recognition for value creation through infrastructure dollars is really shared. But what I think is perhaps more interesting now is, you can see in some of these summaries, but in the data that sits behind this, there's a new kind of interpretation of what value creation looks like. It's not simply getting capital dollars invested in infrastructure and creating jobs necessarily. It's also looking at value creation with an increasing focus on environmental, social, and sustainability goals. And also linked to this, many of the programs that we're seeing globally are not just for capital construction, but also asset preservation and repair, and also training and development, upskilling of populations to meet some of the challenges that are anticipated in the future of infrastructure in that broad sense. So it's almost as if the world is beginning to recognize that, you know, we can't keep running assets to fail, that we need to invest in the future of our infrastructure and the future of the workforce behind it, and that what we do with our assets has a real world impact on the health and well-being of our people, as well as the sustainability of the world we live in. So because I am here in the US, I'm going to just highlight the IIJA as an example here. I know it was mentioned earlier in the Amtrak presentation, that here is really an example of a nation embarking upon a major commitment to authorizing federal funds across a broad array of infrastructure asset classes and project types. Some of the funding expands the role of established programs, which include asset management. So they reinforce the requirement for transit and transportation agencies to have strategic asset management plans, for example, as well as to have a solid projection of their capital investment needs. So those working in asset management departments, perhaps here in the US on transit or transportation asset management plans, they have yet another reason to get colleagues in finance or capital program management engaged, given this additional focus. But equally, more broadly, the asset information itself that's typically held in the asset management information system could be taking a central role and taking center stage, so to speak, in the identification of project needs and the alignment of those project needs to the funding opportunities. So asset management doesn't just have to appear as a line in the eligible grant project types, but more broadly, it could play a role in the broader process that organizations go through for identifying their grant needs and capital project needs. But I totally acknowledge and can see how influxes of capital from central government won't necessarily solve the historic challenges related to infrastructure. We've got significant infrastructure investment really stress testing the whole system and the industry. Access to capital isn't necessarily a problem. It's access to the right resources and adoption of leading practices when delivering those projects. This isn't going to go away. This long-term investment it looks as though it's set to continue. Where there's historic underinvestment that isn't going to be fixed overnight. So some of these challenges we would think it's really important to address now and keep working on to help offset future environmental threats, as well as addressing historic inequities in the way that infrastructure investments have traditionally been made. And I think that a linked point here is no one department or group is going to provide the silver bullet answer. The challenges are really too complex and dynamic. So really the role for asset management here is we predict that this outcome-centric approach of asset management is going to really be called upon increasingly to help leaders navigate an unprecedented era of change with regards to asset infrastructure and what the role of infrastructure is in the broader economic perspective and across these broader themes. So traditional messages that you might see around asset management in the outcomes that asset management can help achieve, it's really important that we remember them and that we can start to make the case to those that are working on grant programs, capital project programs, that those people understand that in those departments that these benefits that are linked to our asset management programs related to operations, sustainability, resilience, commercial, investment related, they can actually integrate into a grant application strategy to help state the case for why a particular project should be put forward for a grant application. People working in the grants office may not necessarily be able to speak to why it's so critical to spend dollars in a particular length of track, for example. It's the operators and the maintainers that understand those points, the people that live and breathe the asset management related information. They won't know that repairing these switches could improve the journey time reliability, make it more predictable that commuters will get from A to B on time. So that might mean that grant dollars aren't accessed unless we can make those connections and help people in less traditional roles see the value of the asset information that may be in the system. So how does this all come together? Thinking with the end in mind, asset owners need to be ready to report on the outcomes that their investments are going to achieve, whether those investments are actually leveraging grant dollars or not. All capital projects need to be aligned with the strategic goals of the organization. That may be easier said than done when an agency strategy needs to take into account local community needs and connect those local needs with a broader state or regional level strategy. And from beginning to end, really right the way through an integrated process. New data sets need to be combined and analyzed in new ways. So taking a broader perspective on what's relevant information, historical instances of flooding, air quality, traffic congestion, broadband coverage, for example. These are data sets which may not be held alongside asset information currently. They may not even be held within the same department. But as we start to think about overlaying those data sets to with the asset condition or historic investment information, data types that are more traditionally held in the asset management system, I think it's an important enabler to help understand where dollars should go and help project the benefits of those investment decisions, which you know, on the tactical level, in a way that helps inform a grant application plan, but on the more outcome driven level, that might help secure dollars to really improve the quality of life for people in a locality. So thinking, just wrapping up here, you know, I've run through pretty quickly given the tight timeline here, some big themes, and I wanted to close with a quick recap. So obviously, stimulus programs are creating a lot of opportunity globally and here in the US in particular, and that it's really prompting different groups that typically develop capital programs or develop grant applications or collect asset information in traditionally siloed capacities. It's a great time to kind of take a step back and start to share information and leverage that information to start approaching this in a more joined up way. There's a lot of historic investment made in collecting asset condition, asset information data, and wouldn't it be wonderful if the benefits of that investment could be realized with securing additional dollars to support those investments which we know are so needed. This might prompt a different way of thinking about data and new approaches to combining different data sets, perhaps leveraging more visual tools to help people really see the story that the data is driving at, and think ESG here, environmental sustainability and governance goals, which are not really terms typically adopted within the public sector, but I think we all know what they mean, and a lot of people's roles are targeted at improving outcomes for communities, especially in the transportation world. So it should be a good fit for us to start using those data sets to help tell the story for securing grant dollars. And I think that really means partnering in new ways, thinking differently. A DOT, for example, might need to reach out to an information technology office or a city or a county to help bubble up the local needs and fit those into a more strategic program for accessing grant dollars. And then really, I think the overarching message is as well, like, this is a great time to be involved in the industry. There's a lot happening, and I think if for some of us that have been involved in asset management as a career choice for a good while, I feel like it's a great time to kind of bring those learnings and bring those messages up to the fore and really integrate them into these more strategic conversations that might be happening at the moment, in particular around accessing and deploying federal or central government level fiscal stimulus dollars. And that's a wrap up from me.
Can you hear us, Susie?
I can now.
Okay, if anyone does have questions, please wait. Oh, sorry, we wanted you to know you got a good round of applause here at the conclusion of your presentation.
That's so kind. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Susan?
It's an interesting topic just by the fact that obviously a lot of transportation organizations are constrained by government funding. Now is potentially time for that to change. It's just you've got to justify exactly what you're going to spend the money on. So if anyone has any points that they want to share, either feel free to do that or get together with us afterwards. It'd be very interesting to hear about it. So.
Great. Okay. Next, we've got Stan Smith and Rob Powell of IBM going to tell us about the future of mass and of the transportation solution. Get excited building when you get, oh yeah, the closer. Uh-oh. We can.
Give him the wireless. I'll take that one.
And guys, we are meeting at 6 p.m. We're gonna take a bus and we're gonna go top off. Just another gentle reminder, sorry. Yeah. Lobby. Yeah. It's Austin Charter Service Bus.
We're good. For the rest of that, was it?
Oh, right here.
That's fine.
It's only 2 slides.
Oh, no, exactly. It won't take long.
Wow.
Right, so good afternoon, everybody, and pleasure to be here. My name is Rob Powell. I'm the product manager for Maximo for Transportation. And my mum's here. Yeah, I will do. That's the best reaction I've ever had. Yeah, so we'll come up to your 50 votes in a minute. And Stan Smith.
Thank you for having us. Rob, I think, is going to drive most of the show, and I'll let color commentary.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll be maybe pleased to hear that we have a disclaimer, as ever. Okay, I'll let you digest that slowly. And then this is the main, we only have one slide, so keep it nice and simple. So this is the proposed roadmap for Maximo Transportation. I should say that tomorrow, 1:45, the overall MAS roadmap will be delivered by Stan and Kim, and we can give you the details of that later. But obviously, to get the whole Maximo Application Suite roadmap, if you attend that session, you get all that detail. I should say for transportation, we're really building on top of and work with what's happening within the application suite. We don't work independently. Obviously, we have our own features and functions that we have as part of transportation. But for instance, as we go through some of these items, you'll see, for instance, the first one, Maximo Mobile, we're also going to build on what Stan and his team have already developed as part of Maximo Mobile for technicians. The way that we've done this roadmap is we were split into three columns. There's no dates on it, you'll notice. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to commit to any dates for our release as yet. Stan might give some color commentary later, maybe.
Maybe do it even now.
Yeah, okay. Do it now.
So where we've been, and we'll talk about this tomorrow a little bit more, but where we've been since we introduced Maximo Application Suite is really, we've been establishing the underlying structure of it, which is based on OpenShift, as we've all heard and know by now. And then what we've been doing is we've been, well, the basis of it was EAM, and we are all here very familiar with EAM, which has become managed within the application suite, which is the core of it, the asset management side. What we've been doing is we've been then bringing together the performance management side of it, which is the monitoring, bringing in the real-time information, the health, which Doug touched on, how fundamental that is, along with
predictive analytics around key asset classes that are important enough to invest even more in. We've been bringing in some technologies like MVI to do more visual-based inspections. And all of those came from disparate groups within IBM, as well as many of them were very immature as far as the capability, and certainly immature as far as the integration with the asset management system. And so if we look at what we've been doing over the last couple of years, we've been bringing those together, as well as we've been doing modernization work. And the modernization work is the foundation around Maximo Mobile, which is fundamental to the application suite. And then we've been modernizing things like the planning and scheduling and dispatching, and things like some of the core management capabilities like maintenance managers and operations managers. And so in the roadmap deck, we'll point to all the different sessions where we go into depth of what we've been doing there. And if we look at the industry solutions, we're kind of taking the same approach as we took with EAM, which is we've established the foundation, brought it up to the level that we want the foundation to be, and then with that, we now focus on the additional time to value that we can do in each of the different key industries, of which transportation's a focus, utilities is a focus, oil and gas, aviation, airports, and then facilities and manufacturing. So each of those are our industries. Utilities is a prime investment, transportation is the other prime investment. Those are our largest sellers across multiple years. They're the ones that get the first attention as we now focus in this transition into a greater investment around the industry solutions. So the reason he doesn't have dates there is we've been using all the resources to do the base. And so with that, what we're doing is we have our releases planned out through the end of this year, and then we're starting to look at our first quarter 2023 release. And that's when we expect, we'll already talk about what we've done in civil infrastructure, which there's a presentation tomorrow on that. And that's the first industry solution where we've been doing investment in, which the timing of that was fairly good given the infrastructure bills and the presentation that Susie shared. But with that, transportation then is going to follow. So that's my lead into Rob as to why he's doesn't have dates on there yet.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Hopefully, Stan says there'll be some dates on there fairly soon. But I think this session really is, it's also, yes, we're going to say, you know, these are things that we're looking at, but we'd like feedback from you because it's really important that, you know, our client base is driving the demand for change, of enhancements into the system. So a quick show of hands, okay, who is a client here using transportation? Okay, that's great. So we've got a really good, must be nearly half the people in the room are clients using the product. So that's really good news. So I'm going to be here all week, and you don't have to shout out now if you particularly like or don't like something on here. But, you know, come and find me, and we can have a sit down. We can go through, you know, what your thoughts are around where the product should be going, what the direction should be. Hopefully it will align. If it doesn't, that's fine, because, you know, we can also look at additional things and change things around. Yeah, this isn't fixed at the moment. As soon as we start getting some dates, you know, we then get into the commitment stage and we're pretty much fixing what we're going to have to do. So now's the time. If you've got any particular strong opinions, like on standard repair times, for example, then, you know, now's the time to say. But just looking at the items in the roadmap, you see, you know, I've put in 3 groups. They could be done in different sequences. Okay, it's not really fixed in that way. Well, you see, there's quite a lot of focus on mobile. Okay, so mobile, we're looking at from a technician perspective, maybe from a driver perspective, and also from within the inventory environment as well. Those are the sort of the 3 main areas. We've then got some other sort of heavy demand around enhancements to warranty. So warranty is a huge thing in transportation, both in fleets and in rail as well. And so we will be investing in changes to the way that we manage the warranty process. So things like pass-through warranty. So if you need to pass the warranty on to a different vendor or supplier, so how you can manage that, you know, more easily than Maximo. And there's a number of other items within the warranty process. Is anybody here from FedEx Freight? because we had a welcome. So I'm. Great. Yes, we met on the phone. So a lot of these things have come out from FedEx Freight. And of course, we're getting different inputs from different clients. Okay. It's great to get, a client giving an opinion, but we always want to have more than one client. Okay. Because we don't want to be a particular, FedEx Freighty way of doing it. It might not, probably is the best way. I'm not saying it's not the best way, but there might be alternative approaches as well that we need to look at. So mobile and warranty are big items. Standard repair times, that has come up a lot. I'm going to go on the next slide I have, I'll show at the end, is from our ideas portal. So those of you probably, is everybody aware of how you would raise an enhancement into Maximo as a request? Does anybody not know? I assume not everybody knows. So there's a process. It used to be called for request for enhancement. It's now called the ideas process.
Yeah, so I think you can just look up IBM ideas, and then once you look up, just Google IBM ideas. Once you find that, you can find the different product areas within IBM. Look up Maximo Application Suite. Once you get into Maximo Application Suite, it breaks down further into the different products that make up Maximo Application Suite. You can go directly to there. We review them on a weekly basis. So we'll watch them as they come along here. And it's a good vehicle to communicate back and forth. Once you enter an idea, other people can vote on it. When you go into the portal, look to see if somebody else had entered your idea because you want to vote on theirs. And every time you go into there, you can add comments. So what you want to do is you can vote on it, but then you can add a comment to describe who you are, what your use case is, why it's important to you, and what you want from it. And all of that factors in as we review these on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and you will get a response within, I think, 7 or 14 days.
Right, you will.
As to whether or it's being considered for inclusion.
Yep, and then every time the status changes, including when it's coming in the next release, you'll get updated on that if you voted on it.
Yeah. The other main area, you'll notice down at the bottom, we've got the cross-MAS process integration. So, what we want to be able to do is to be able to utilize all the work that's been put into the additional components within the application suite around monitoring, predict, and health, and really have a transportation flavor of those particular processes. So we will be looking for volunteers to help us and assist us to, and this isn't today, this will be in the future, help us to define those analytical models that are required for the typical transportation assets. Because, we don't really know, within product management, yes, I was in the industry, but I was there like 30 years ago. So, we need to have, what is the latest opinions, the latest views, and the best way that we can utilize, this technology that's with part of the application suite ready to be used, and we sort of make sure that we use it effectively. So it's something to think about.
And with that, that would be an area to not hesitate at all in, because the asset models, if you look for presentations on how to predict or how to predict utilities, one of the things we have there is we've got the ability, we've got a set of data scientists within IBM that can go in and create these models. We can also take in input from you if you have models. But I think one of the key things we need is, what are the key asset classes that matter? Are you willing to engage with us to create a model for that? And as soon as we put that together, we can leverage that within the health and predict portion of it. You don't need a new release of Maximo for transportation for that. So I would highly, highly encourage that if you are interested in our investing around condition maintenance, which is probably the easier lift of the two, or something around predictive maintenance, which you're investing even more in, engage us. We are interested in it because that's something that can roll out immediately because those products are available. The only thing that's limiting any of those is having models out there for that.
Yeah, so please, contact myself or Stan, and we can sort of take it from there.
Right. Is that something like defect clustering?
Yeah, I mean that could all be part of it. Yeah, yeah. Sure. I mean, we're open to anything really in terms of, don't feel that it might not be included. Just if we can't manage it, then we'll let you know. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When we say that we're talking all levels of study.
Yeah. The other item on here, I just want to raise with you as well, is this one down the bottom here. This is consideration of new industry accelerators. So we're using the term accelerators now because we feel that it's more appropriate to accelerate the adoption of Maximo into a particular industry. We do have Maximo for aviation. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. I'm the product manager for that as well. So it's any aircraft or anything you want to manage. But the approach we had for Maximo for aviation was to take various components from Maximo. So Maximo Asset Configuration Manager, elements of transportation, all of service provider, some of HSE, and to build that into a single product. So those of you who are familiar with the industry solutions, traditional approach is that you install Maximo, you install transportation, you install service provider, you install HSE, and you get multiple occurrences of particular applications, and it can cause a little bit of confusion or a little bit of extra effort. So with Maximo for aviation, we did a combination of all those different elements and put it into a single product. So we're considering doing a similar thing, and this is only at the early stages, but around for fleet, for example, for rail, and we've had a lot of interest from rail actually, because we'd also potentially include not just the rail rolling stock, but also infrastructure. As Stan mentioned, civil infrastructure as being one of our other industry solutions. So combining the capabilities there, with the sort of configuration management, the work management, and so on, and also potentially adding some new capabilities. So yes, bring in what's there, but also is there some additional industry functionality that would be needed to make those a really viable sort of solution. The other one we have down at the bottom here is for space tech. So that is for space as in lunar space and beyond, and being able to manage those types of assets in terms of their reusability and so on. And again, we have some quite strong interest in that. So it's a huge market, growing. The number of launches out of Cape Canaveral next year could almost be one a day. So maybe not next year, but this is growing to that sort of sort of size. The other things that we have on here, let me just show a hand. Is this something that would be of interest? Maybe like a combined rail solution or combined fleet? Nodding hands. So I'd say that's a yes. So yes. I'll report that back. Thank you. Yes. Okay. We'll record that in the minutes. That's good. In fact, is this being recorded at all? There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Have you said the solution? So I think I've covered most of the points on here. There's a few little things around, add quick PM action, quick reporting. These are things that have been suggested through the ideas portal, which are all very valid. Quite often we think of the big stuff. We've got to do this and do that, but very often it's the small things that make a big difference to the users. So we want to hear about those smaller things that could make a difference. From our perspective, they'd be fairly simple, relatively simple to do. So we can include hopefully quite a few of those.
If you want to get a preview over the next few days of where each of these things are going, there's a couple sessions around Maximo Mobile. There's one around inspections. There's one on mobile in general. It'll give you a very good perspective as to what you can expect from incidents in the transportation side. There's a session there on planning and scheduling the next generation of the scheduling software, and Pedro Solfa Spadassini, anyway, just look up scheduling. There's a session on that. There's also a session on Russell B's doing a session that I think includes maintenance manager, which kind of gives a vision as to where we're going with more of this combined persona focus versus melding together all the applications that make up a start center. So you can see each of those. And then there's also something called, I think, an innovation lab, or what's it called? It is the experience lab. I think it might be called innovation or experience lab. But with that, there's a series of sessions in there, 20-minute sessions and all, where the design people are leading it. And they're giving a fairly good interactive discussion about where we're going in each of those areas and why. And we'll touch on it in the overall roadmap also.
So just to, before we can have some questions, but this is just, I downloaded this from our ideas portal that we mentioned earlier. So a lot of things you'll see on that roadmap are from here. This is the list of the ones that are currently either planned for future or future consideration. So you'll see, for instance, the one that's, and you see the votes. I've done the vote order. So by far and above, the most popular is the standard repair times, courtesy of Gina here.
Gina and family.
Yeah, and family.
I know I'm a hillbilly, but I got lots of kids.
We know. So yeah, but that's fine, you know, and it gives us a strong indication also of where the emphasis is. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, okay? Brilliant. Okay, so I think we've got a few minutes, maybe a couple minutes for questions. So,
have you considered through the OBE connectors on fleet vehicles, on just vehicles in general? We've had OBE telematics available since '06, and nobody's really captured that as far as if you have a handheld device or a laptop or something like that, plug it into the computer and fill the void of specifications.
right.
Give
Okay.
you the engine model, the make model, all these hundreds of details that you have to put in manually
Yeah.
in the Maximo. This could be populated just like that.
Yeah.
Plugging it in.
Rod, you might want to give 10 seconds question itself for the mic.
Oh,
And,
oh yeah, sorry.
So
Yeah.
just describe what you're going to answer.
Yeah. So,
Just give the description.
all right.
of what you're gonna answer.
Yeah. So the question was really if we're going to do any enhancements around telematic integration to bring in more data from the vehicle. And I would say yes. I mean, we've also been talking about that for electric vehicles as well. So, but it's something that's not on the roadmap, but it probably should be on the roadmap, actually, that type of enhancement. And that's the sort of thing you can put into the ideas portal as well. So I think that'd be a good one. I'm pretty certain that'd be accepted for a future consideration. So I think anything's going to make things easier.
It would be extremely
Yeah.
hours and odometer and all those meter readings that get fact fingered and then through Maximo manual way.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, there's a certain degree of telematics already.
It's been in use by fuel management for years. I don't know why anybody else has not captured this idea.
Are you using the telematics input procedure that's out of the box, Maximo?
I'm sorry.
Are you using the telematics data import procedure that's out of the box, Maximo?
Yeah. Yeah. So there is existing capability in Maximo for telematics, but I think we could probably enhance it. Yeah. That's maybe a question. Any other questions? Yeah, so the question is, what are we sort of envisaging for the driver? So yes, I think it could be a whole range of things in terms of those sort of self-service requests, reporting problems and so on. Could also be potentially be things that are related back into the dispatching type system as well. So, to be honest with you, these are very high level. We've done no detailed definition on these, but if you've got if you have experience or you have some ideas, then we'd love to talk to you about, what your thoughts would be. Which company are you from? Quick. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it is. It's on the, if you type in IBM ideas.
Type in IBM ideas. You're going to want to enter either if you think it's more centered around fundamental asset management, enter them against manage. Okay. If you think it's something that is more cross-suite, enter it against core services. Okay. And with it, and if you don't know which one to do, enter it against general, and I'll take care of it.
Yeah, but you can, all products are covered within the ideas portal. So I can show you if you like afterwards. I can show you on my laptop if you want.
And within the portal, if it comes in, we have the ability to transfer it from section to section and all. So somebody will analyze it once you get it in there, and we'll make sure it gets to the right spot.
Any other questions? It's part of our design approach is persona based. So Greg was asking the use of personas as part of our sort of development activity. So all of our sort of design is done around multiple personas. So it's from the user perspective typically, and we just sort of define the what the requirements are of that persona, and then the whole process is linked back to that.
And to add to it, the first ones that we're seeing around there, I mean, from the mobile side, we've got the personas that go against there, and so they're driving like the inspector persona, the technician, the service requester, etc. What the ones that we're introducing in kind of an order that we're going after them is we've got the scheduling persona that will be out at the end of the year, and we've got the maintenance manager, which will be out at the end of the year. Okay? The maintenance manager one is kind of along the lines of what we did to establish start centers as kind of a foundation for all of Maximo. We're creating something called operational dashboards. Okay? And the idea around it is dashboard start center, roughly the same. It's your initial starting point and all. Operational means we're going to kind of tailor them to some of the main roles. And the things that we're doing right now is maintenance manager and scheduling. The next ones that are coming is operations manager, and then we'll do dispatching. So those two will kind of be running at the same time. The other ones that we know that we need to address is an asset manager persona, an HSE persona, and then we move into others. There'll be variants of that across industries where they're going to take one of those baselines and clone that and then add in industry content to it. There may be other personas. We have things like a service request manager, and we're kind of looking at how prevalent that's going to be. Service requests are prevalent. They most often get transitioned into something else, which we think will be covered by the maintenance manager. But we're open to discussion there, but we've got each of those others that are coming in. So go to the maintenance manager, and that'll give you a really good idea. And if you don't see the session, hunt down Russell B, and he'll be the best one to show you what that is. Or you can hunt down me, and I'll guide you to the right person.
On the warranty claims enhancements, is there a list of that on ideas, or I'm kind of fishing for something here, so I'm just going to ask. Anything around goodwill claims is what I'm looking for.
I don't recall goodwill. So I mean, goodwill's covered up to a point, isn't it?
It's that gray period when your warranty ends, but you might be able to fudge it.
Yeah.
We're fudging it more and more and more in the industry that I see.
I mean, please check on the ideas.
And I was going to say, do those things roll off, or do they just all stay? I mean, I've been on there a couple of times, obviously, but do those accumulate?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
accumulate.
So nothing's rolling off.
It doesn't roll off unless it would only roll off if we rejected it.
Okay.
But I think that stays on for a while. You just see what the status is. But there is no rolling off.
Okay, just wanted to know. That way I agree. I don't do.
Sure. Yeah.
Is there anything important related to, let's say, sustainability capital replacement planning, like Susie presented on? How do you gather things together on a grant? How do you build down that grant over time and report back against the grant?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing specific in the roadmap for that.
Yeah. I think that is more driven. We we've got more work going on in that area within core Maximo. And so the work that we're doing across health, as well as what is Help and Predict for utilities, which we're transitioning into Help and Predict for industries, it's got more of that planning type capability within that, and that will be the foundation. And so as we look at it by asset class, that's the input that we want within there, because a lot of that we can bring in, because there's already some replacement planning in there, repair versus refurbish type of content that is in the health product already. So that I believe will be the baseline that we want to draw from.
Are all the industry solutions kind of moving into this 360 view with the whole suite? It sounds like it is.
So where we are is we want, as Rob said, we're kind of taking the industry solution term and more towards accelerators. What we've done is, to date, we have a set of things that have been time value improvements within EAM. So those are all still there. They're being managed. Everything is there. It transitioned over as is. We also have a little bit of work underway with Help and Predict from the utility side. And the only reason why it's Help and Predict for utilities is that the models that were created were for assets in utilities industry. All of that capability is cross-industry capability. And so with that, what we've done is we brought all of that forward into the suite, and the areas where we expect to invest is feature function items that Rob's got on this list, but then also bring in the value. And we think the value from the rest of the suite is going to be in Help and Predict is an obvious one. There'll be connectors in there so that the real-time data that you have off of your sensors and other devices can stream in through the monitor product, which will be able to bring that in. And so we very much are going to leverage the cross-suite capabilities across different industries. And the only thing gating that our preposition is, the only thing gating that is the connectors and the models, okay? And all of those are things that we're going to get uniquely from the industries.
Yeah, we're, so you guys, thank you.
Sure.
Now, like 5 minutes left for general questions for if anything came to mind from any of our presenters that you wanted to pose a question to them. Now's the time to do that. Anybody? I know we had some question and answer after each session, so maybe not. I want to thank you all for being here. Want to give a thanks to our committee for setting this up. This was a great set of presentations. I want to remind you about the golf meeting at 6 down at the hotel entrance to get on the bus. And this is not for just golfers. I'll tell you, this is a fun activity to do. I myself do like to golf, but this is a great thing to do, even if you're not a golfer. Good social activity. So we hope you all join us there. Yeah, thank you for coming. Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. I got your email, but it was the reason. So what happened was for different links, it was
Each of the presenters have a good time set on their.
maybe that's how you got the email, but it was
Show that you don't tend to need as much time as you might.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
Usually hand this stuff into or just leave it on the. Here's our
Well, you can leave it on the desk. Yeah.
So the mic,
We put it on the table.
I can, and this one. We can take everything off. Oh, I need to stop before you let me do that real quick. Yeah, so this was the first one. I promise you the next one